Hi everyone, thanks ever so much for coming forward to help with the Federation staff antibody testing service. We've had a really great response to our call for help, so thank you ever so much. And what we want to do is make sure that it's as easy as possible for you to come on board and to get working in the service really. So you've been working with my colleague Sally in getting all of those documents sorted, and what we're going to do today, or when you have a chance to watch this video, is just run through a few slides to get you inducted into the Federation. But before we start, I just want to remind you, before your first shift, before you get onto the rota, please check that your Sister One username and password work. If you have any issues with that, please let me know. Okay, so what we'll do now is just share my slides and make sure that you can see what we're going to go through. What I'd like to just give you a bit of background around is who we are. We are Suffolk GP Federation, and we offer a variety of different services to our patients in Suffolk, and we group those into 4 different areas. So you can see from our structure chart that we've got community care services in the top left, and these are a bunch of services that the Federation has decided to take on because they take them out of the hospital and put them back into the community. And some of those have been given to us from the Alliance contract, and you'll see those listed, and some of them are just what we'd like to do to help bring those services out of the hospital and back into the community, and then be able to support primary care in seeing those patients as well. In the top right, we've got our primary care services. So although we're a member organisation, we have 58 GP practices that are members of Suffolk GP Federation. We don't directly do business. They are able to manage their services themselves, but we do have 2 surgeries that we directly run, and that's Kirkley Mill Surgery, which is over in Lowestoft, and Christmas Maltings and Clement Surgery, which is over in Haverhill. So in terms of geography, they are probably as far apart as we could possibly have got. The Federation doesn't go out looking to run these services, to run primary care, and what happens is if there's a partner or partnership that's about to retire, the CCG would ask if we could take on those services and to take them forward. In the bottom left, we've got mental health, and again, this isn't big mental health as we call it, or NSFT. This is our team of specialist mental health nurses that support our Ipswich practices, and also Felixstowe and Haverhill, and also now in Kirkley as well. So the mental health nurses triage off the GP list in any way that they can support the GPs, and then actually see those patients face to face when we're allowed to do face-to-face appointments again. And then we've got urgent care in the bottom right. So these are our urgent care services, which comprise of GP Plus, which is our extended access service, our ED streaming service, which we run with Ipswich Hospital and West Suffolk Hospital to support our A&E colleagues. We also have our integrated urgent care services, or out of hours as everybody knows it as, and we're responsible for the face-to-face element of this service. So Care UK hold the main contract, they hold 111 and the clinical assessment service, and then we're responsible for seeing those patients in Suffolk face to face, whether that's at one of our 8 bases, once we're able to open them after COVID, or home visits. So our clinicians are driven to the patient's home via our drivers. We also have our minor injuries clinic in Felixstowe, which is no longer a walk-in service. It's part of the Alliance as well, and it's where some of our phlebotomy clinics will be running from. Our 4 areas are supported by a central team, and our central team is made up of our board. So we're led from a clinical perspective right from the top. On our board, there's mainly GPs, there's an accountant, there's our CEO that's on the board, so they just guide us through our areas where we're needed to be guided. We then have our integrated governance committee, and then various different positions within the organisation, as you can see, medical director, chief nurse, mental health medical director, urgent care medical director, quite senior positions within the organisation, as you'd expect from a clinically led organisation. So, in terms of our COVID-19 response, we have reminded ourselves that we do have a clinically led culture, which has allowed us to be flexible and responsive. So back when COVID was first muttered around, there was guidance that came out left, right and centre almost every day. And it was really important for us to be able to implement that within 12 hours of getting it. We didn't just put that guidance on our clinicians, we made sure that we were able to discuss it and seek their views on it, and make sure that we were doing everything to support our patients, but also to support our workforce. There's been various different things that we've been asked to deliver from a Federation perspective in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and one of these is the staff antibody testing, which is what we're talking about today. So this process pathway is quite difficult to see on the screen, but we just thought it was important to talk you through how the patients actually get to you once you start to take their blood. So what happens is, starting from the top, that staff in our organisation, but also in our members' organisation, are offered antibody testing to everybody who has previously tested positive via PCR testing, and also to those that have previously had antibody testing as long as it was over a month ago. So they're offered this test. They either decline and then no further action is required, or they accept. When they accept, they're given an information leaflet and a consent form sent via email. They then have two options. They can either contact their GP to get an appointment booked into our GP Plus appointments, or they can call the Federation directly on that number there, and we'll book them into a GP Plus appointment at one of the 8 locations. So then they get their appointment confirmed by text to that staff member, and they then have to turn up remembering to bring their completed consent form. We will have spare consent forms at each of the sites in case they forget. We're going to get the blood forms printed ahead of clinic if possible, and we'll be using ICE via System 1. Once you've taken the blood, the samples are then collected and taken to the Ipswich lab at 3 different times, either at 12, 5 only on the weekends, and at the end of the clinic by 10 o'clock. The results are then returned via ICE to the Fed System 1 unit, who will then send the results to the staff member directly on that email address that they put on that form. So it's really important that we're able to read that email address. The results will come back either positive or negative, and in which case no further action is required from us, or the results will come back failed or spoiled, or equivocal results, which means that the patient or the staff member will need to be recalled. And that's what the red arrow shows, and they start that process again from there. So when you're on shift, if you have any support or concerns, this is what the Federation is able to help you with. So we have a Federation Urgent Care Bulletin, which goes out at least weekly, and it's distributed via Rotamaster. Sometimes that bulletin gets put into people's junk mail because it comes via Rotamaster, so please make sure that you're checking your junk often. Within that Urgent Care Bulletin, there's guidance, particularly around COVID, any changes in services, so there'll be a lot of information at the moment around the antibody testing and any issues that have been raised locally. As soon as we get information, we like to share it, but only make sure that it's as relevant as possible, as I appreciate there's a lot of information coming at you from probably all different angles. From a clinical perspective, you've got our shift lead who operates in the control room, and that person is responsible for the effective running of all of our urgent care services, which is where the staff antibody testing will fall within for the 2 weeks that it's running. You also have colleagues logged into System 1 all over the county, and it's a small world, so you'll probably recognise a few people that are logged into System 1. Please make use of each other. Please say hello on instant message, pick up the phone, ask questions if you do need to. You also have access to the on-call clinician and the on-call manager. So the Federation is structured so that if the issue that you have cannot be resolved at the local level with the administrator that's on shift with you, with that shift lead in the control room, you are able to escalate it with support from those colleagues to the relevant manager on call. We then have our closest thing to an intranet, which is called Share Blocks, and that's where we store all of our policies, protocols, and at the moment a lot of COVID guidance. And I've put the link on the slides, so hopefully you'll be able to access that. Otherwise, it's in System 1 when you actually log in and you're using our Federation network. But if you have got particular questions around any of our policies, please let us know and I can send them to you in advance. We also have great IT support from Astute, so they're a company just outside of Ipswich. They work 24/7 with us as well, so it'll just depend on what time of the day your shift is, what day of the week it is, depends on which number you call. However, our admin team are very used to picking up the first time login queries or any basic IT support that you might need, so please ask the administrator on shift with you first before contacting Astute. So that shift administrator, they'll also be there to support you as well. There'll be somebody on site as well as somebody working at Riverside called the shift coordinator, who'll be able to help you with anything that you might need as well. So in terms of what you need to wear to work in one of these clinics, we're asking you to have some sort of ID. So we're not providing ID badges for the Federation, but we just assume that you have got some sort of ID from working either in the community or in another practice. Please bring that along with you, and we'll aim to have some Federation lanyards which you can then attach your badge to. Obviously, we're trying to move away from the lanyards and have more of the badges if possible for infection control purposes. We don't have a uniform. You just turn up in your usual scrubs or your usual tabars, whatever you normally wear to carry out the blood taking. And then we will provide PPE. So we provide the apron, the type 2R mask, gloves and visors. We have a great supply, so we're able to give as much as you need to be able to do this task safely. I'd also like to remind you on your first shift, because we haven't been able to get in front of you face to face before you actually turn up to work, that we need you to bring your passport or anything else that you would have of the evidence of the right to work in the UK with you to your first shift. We have to have the original document certified, and one of our administrators on site will be able to do that for you. That's just for your first shift, to make sure that we have that certified passport on file. If you don't have a passport, then please get in touch and we'll let you know what other documents you can bring. So you'll also notice that we haven't asked for any mandatory training certificates or anything like that, because obviously we wanted to make the process as smooth as possible. We also appreciate that you're working within Suffolk, within the Alliance, within our member practices. So we trust that your mandatory training is up to date. There's also some other priorities at the moment as well. So what we want to do is just make sure that we run through information governance with you, just some few key points to make sure that we have informed you of these things. So please always follow the Caldecott principles when you're sharing the patient data, and I'm sure you know those off by heart by now. Please protect the organisation's networks and assets through good information security practices, and I'll touch on what those mean on a later slide. Please take responsibility for good quality data entry. So we're really lucky that we're able to use System 1. It gives you full access to the record. Our clinicians are able to see the full patient record, but it's really important that our data that we put into System 1 is of good quality. Coming in with fresh eyes into the Federation, you might be in a better position to spot any issues around duplication, missing data, any bad practice or any other concerns that you might have. Please do raise those with your manager, with myself, with Sally, or the Caldecott Guardian, if that's appropriate, who is Dr. Ruth Bushaway, our medical director. So some key data security points that I'm sure you're already familiar with. Please only use NHS Mail to share patient data. Don't share your smart card or leave it in your machine unattended. Whoever's using System 1 needs to be the person logged in. We're asking you not to use your own personal mobile phone to call patients, but you shouldn't need to do during these clinics. In Suffolk, we find that patients often have the same name and date of birth, so it's really important to use multiple identifiers to establish the correct record, and ensure that your screens are locked when you're away from your desk. Report any suspected or actual information incidences or breaches to the line manager, to the administrator that's on shift, or to the clinical shift lead. And don't use Federation equipment for personal use, not because we don't want you to be on Facebook, it's just a very easy domain to get hacked through. Don't leave any medical or staff records or confidential information lying around unattended. And really important to remember not to look at your own records or those of family or friends without explicit permission from the Federation. System 1 is fully recordable and reportable, so access to our systems are constantly monitored. And there's reports that are run to determine surnames being accessed by people with the same surname and address and those sorts of things. In terms of safeguarding, as you're working in Suffolk, it's the same safeguarding routes that you're used to using, but we've put them on one slide just in case you need to access those at a later date. Any safeguarding referral that you do does need to be put on Datex. I'm not sure if you would be familiar with Datex already, but don't worry if not. What you just need to do is let the administrator know, and the administrator will do the Datex entry for you. Our Datex system is monitored by our governance team internally, and so if they do need any more information from you, they'll just pick up the phone and speak to you directly if there is anything that they need more information for. We've got 2 safeguarding policies. I haven't put all of the information on the slides as they're quite long, and I'm sure they're very similar to the safeguarding policies that you work to in your community or the general practice that you work within. So if you do need to access those policies, please let us know, and if you'd like them in advance, then of course we can send them. So there will be some System 1 training that will take place after this in forms of, again, another video, but just as a high level reminder, if your smart card is broken, you can use your username and password. That's really not our preferred way of accessing System 1. You don't have access to the spine. There's no EPS, and it's just not our preferred way, not as secure. So if you do have issues, if it's gone through the wash machine, please let us know. We can get you a new smart card sorted. The difference between a task and an instant message, if you're not familiar already, a task is when confirmation is needed, like a referral, and it's linked to that patient record, whereas the instant message is more of a chat function to tell the administrator perhaps that you're running late or you'd like a cup of tea. But please remember that the instant message function is recorded as well, so please don't use it as an opportunity to vent about a patient, a staff member, a manager, for example. We have seen that in the past. So nearly finished. In terms of shifts and payment, you'll be able to book your shifts on RotaMaster. This is our online rota system. We do have an app available as well if you prefer to do that on your phone, your tablet, rather than the desktop. You don't miss out on any functionality depending on what area you use it on. You'll get a login once you've become compliant, once you've sat through the induction, once you've had your System 1 training and all the documents are complete. On RotaMaster, you'll be able to review and request the shifts that are available to you over that 2-week period. And you'll also be able to see where the shifts are. So if you're only interested, for example, in working the shifts in the east, you can filter down to only look at those locations rather than the west as well. It is a very easy to use system, but if it's easier for you just to pick up the phone and speak to the rota team, they'll know where the shifts are needed to be filled, so they'll be able to guide you and pop you into those shifts. And their telephone number is there. They work Monday to Saturday from about 8:30 till 6 o'clock. So you also get paid via RotaMaster. You don't need to submit us an invoice or keep a timesheet. The RotaMaster system downloads the shifts that you've worked and pays them into your nominated bank account. It's important that we have the right bank account on file, and we also have the right HMRC tax code to make sure we get that right from the start. And what you'll get paid for is all of the shifts that you work. We get paid a month in arrears, and so the shifts that you work in June, they'll get paid at the end of July. And you'll also get paid for this induction session and also the System 1 training, and that will show as an adjustment on your payslip. We will need an email from you to confirm that you've watched and understood the content of this induction and the training in order to make that payment. And then finally, just to sum up, we've put all of the contact details onto one slide for you to hopefully make that easier if you do need to get in touch with any of those areas. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the induction, and I look forward to welcoming you into the clinics in the next couple of weeks.